Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the voice in your head. We all have that conversation going in the background, sometimes not so much in the background. And it's often giving us really negative messaging and torturing us in all kinds of ways. And today we're going to talk about befriending that voice and allowing it to use its powers for good to serve us in forwarding our current intentions. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your palms together. Feel the friction, the temperature, the motion, the pressure, all those sensations, including the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. Welcome to everybody who's joining us. We had a technical issue yesterday, but we're back. And today's topic is the voice in your head. So for most of us, the voice in our head is giving us negative messaging. Good morning, Kimberly. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. Is telling us we're not good enough, don't even bother, what's wrong with you, all kinds of negative messaging. And these voices can be voices from our past. The thing is that originally, what if we entertain the possibility that that voice actually had a positive intention, even if it's somewhat malignant at this point in our lives? What if that voice, for instance, was trying to keep you safe? So for instance, as a kid growing up in a traumatic environment, perhaps it was really a matter of survival to keep your mouth shut, to be quiet, to make yourself small, to hide, to make yourself invisible. And that was how you stayed safe, because it was a dangerous environment. And if you were seen, you could get hurt or worse. And so that voice learned to keep you small for your own survival. And now here you are, an adult, trying to make an impact in the world, and you still have that voice that is committed to what it thinks is keeping you safe. And the way that it's doing that is by giving you all this messaging that defeats you from any endeavors that you might attempt. And we don't typically, first of all, we don't typically recognize that voice. It's kind of background noise that we don't even notice. It's just there conditioning us and programming us ongoingly, for one. But when we do kind of turn up the volume or redirect our focus so that we gain awareness of this voice, usually it's pretty negative, and what we don't typically do is engage with it in dialogue and recognize it as something that is here to serve us. And so yesterday in my coaching group weekly group meeting, we looked at these, we called them dragons, and taming the dragon, that when engaging in dialogue with this voice, to acknowledge it, first of all, to say, hey, you know what, I know you have a positive intention. I want to thank you for being with me all this time. And I'm wondering, what is your positive intention? You know, what is it that you've been trying to create for me? And because these voices have a lot of power in our lives. And so typically the voice will let you know what it's there for, that it's there to keep you safe, or that it's there to, well, usually it's safety and protection. And then we get to enroll that voice in supporting us and saying, hey, you know what? That was great for when I was a kid. That was great for when I didn't have any power in the world. And now I do, or I have the capability for it. And so this is a different time that's calling for a different strategy. Are you up for it? You know, are you willing to sort of retool things a bit to better support me in my current circumstance and with my current intentions in life? So many of us have this hiding that has been cultivated over a lifetime. And this voice is pretty powerful, pretty effective. And if we can collaborate with it, if we can enroll it in our highest interests, then it can be pretty resourceful in generating new ways of communicating and keeping you safe. You know, it's like that there can be an ongoing dialogue with this voice. The thing that makes it despotic in our lives is that it's usually unrecognized. It's usually not present in our conscious awareness, and it's kind of run amok because it hasn't had the opportunity to recalibrate to current demands. And so the invitation today is to listen to whatever that undercurrent kind of droning narrative is, and to bring it present in your awareness and to dialogue with that, because it's coming from an intelligence. It may seem it is on automatic pilot at this point, but there's an intelligence underlying it that is your intelligence that maybe just kind of got off course a bit. And if it's reconnected to its intention, then there's generally a willingness for it to recalibrate. And what a powerful ally, you know, because this voice can be such a powerful opposition to us. It can be an equally empowering ally. And so there's a world of potential available to us in creating that connection, in creating that dialogue. So it was very interesting with one person yesterday. They were engaged in well, this voice was really berating it and berating her and making her feel like an utter fool for having hope, and trying to remove the hope, and making her numb, because that was a way to avoid the pain of dashed hope, or hope denied, or hope frustrated. And it was so powerful to see her move into a place where this was really, really interesting, where the context for hope expanded beyond a single lifetime. It was so fascinating, actually. And this wasn't just a clear-cut voice in her head, but it did result in part of her shutting herself down. It wasn't necessarily a voice, but a behavior, shutting herself down to protect her from the prospect of hope defeated. And she shared this magnificent process. It was this journey where into multiple lifetimes with deep, deep suffering. And she saw beyond it. It was so amazing. She saw this tower, and this tower looked like it was indestructible. And she was chained to the walls in the tower, and died in that tower, chained to the walls, and her bones became part of compost that was on the ground. And from that compost, it was this really, really rich soil, and it was like centuries of painful suffering and death and all of that was going into this compost that was rich and vital and alive. And there were bugs and worms, and eventually, over centuries, life sprouted forth, and there were roots, and they put their very fine threaded roots in through the bricks or the stone of the tower. And while it wasn't visible from the outside, the tower looked like it was solid and strong, but these roots were growing and expanding, and eventually they were going to collapse the tower. And it was a certain outcome. And so that was the hope, like knowing that it's not empty hope, that those roots are there and they're growing. And even if other people don't see them, they are working to collapse and crumble that tower. And as a result of that, her hope was renewed. She gave herself permission to not just, it wasn't even hope anymore. It turned into a knowing. It turned into a certainty that there would be, that this tower would fall. And so this is the kind of transformation of that voice, of those patterns, of those behaviors that are available to us. Kimberly says, I've been trying to stomp out the ants, automatic negative thoughts. Oh, that's so funny. I never heard that before. They can mentally paralyze us. Yes, they can, Kimberly. And stomping them out, so we were talking about taming dragons, and that's this voice in your head is the dragon voice. I had originally thought of slaying dragons, and I thought, well, wait a second, that's kind of perpetuating a paradigm that we're not too thrilled with, you know, this paradigm of dominance and violence. And you might think that taming is also a thing of dominance. So maybe we want to say befriending dragons rather than even taming them. But instead of stomping out these negative thoughts, to look at them and to actually engage with them as if they have a presence. So as if they had some intelligence to say, okay, so what's your intention? What's your positive intention? Let's assume a positive intention from these thoughts. And if indeed there's a positive intention of what looks like a horrifically negative thought that can mentally and emotionally and even spiritually paralyze us, what are they up to? What's the positive intention? And when we ask about that, we're likely to get a response. You know, so if it's paralyzing, maybe the way that it's trying to keep you safe is by holding you still, keeping things the same, because at least as they are, it's manageable. You know, there's this thing about sticking with the misery, you know. I have a client who talks about his, oh no, what does he call it? I want to say his favorite miserable, I think, is what he calls it. But he hasn't talked about it for a long time because I think that they are disappearing, because he is engaging with them in a way like these thoughts have a lot of power, and we could try and cut them out and purge them and destroy them and do all that kind of stuff. But what if instead, given that we're intending a new paradigm of cooperation and collaboration and unity and community, what if we enroll them instead? You know, what if we look at their positive intention? What if we get them to be on our team? What if we recognize that they are on our team and give them a better pathway to serve us? Because they're pretty resourceful. I mean, they've come up with this way to keep us paralyzed, right? Those voices. And, you know, they may be from our past, they may be from our other than conscious. I tend to believe they are. We have, excuse me, we've cultivated a lot of behaviors to keep us in our lane, because there's the assumption of safety there. You know, it's frightening to hope. It takes courage to hope. And I don't mean hopium kind of hope, or that is just not grounded in true potential. That's just sort of airy, insubstantial hope. I mean, hope that can be inspiring action. I guess not passive hope is what I'm saying, but an active, engaged sort of hope for potential. So, but it can be frightening. It can be frightening to dream. Why? Because what happens if that dream doesn't come true? You know, it can be frightening to love, because what happens if things in the relationship don't work out? What happens if someone or some being that you're connected to dies, and then it's heartbreaking. And what happens if there's loss? And so to risk yourself, to create that vulnerability, hoping for something, there's a deep vulnerability to that, right? You know, believing in something has a deep vulnerability to it. So Kimberly says, I can put this to use. Thank you for the awareness. Excellent, Kimberly. I'm curious to know how it works for you. It's very different perspective, right? Because we're always trying to fix things. And coming from a notion, a place of unity and oneness and connection, rather than exiling these parts of ourselves and trying to keep them at bay, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to be ever vigilant, to be in these places of defense all the time, to be trying to ward off all these influences that impact us. Instead, we have the ability to bring ourselves forth in a greater way and create an alignment with these other, with these dissonant influences or dissident influences even. So Jenny, welcome. Thank you. Jenny says, I'm grateful you are okay and your second chance. I watched it yesterday. So it was actually from the day before, because yesterday I didn't get to go live, but Jenny, thank you so much. For those of you who didn't catch the, I guess it was Tuesday's show on Monday night, not Monday night. I'm so confused. On Sunday night, I had a, oh my gosh, no, it was Tuesday night. Sorry, I get in that loop and I have to figure it out. I don't know if you have that too. It's like, oh, it's laser focus, can't let go until you figure it out. Anyway, it was Tuesday night. I had a really close call driving, and it was kind of an opportunity to look at second chances. So that's what Jenny's referring to. I'm glad you got to watch it, Jenny. Thank you. And I know you've been through so much and have experienced a major second chance, so to speak. Rosalind says, ask the voice inside, what are you protecting me from? Well, you might want to ask, what's your positive intention? Because it might not be protection. It likely is, but it might not be. And then Rosalind says, assume you don't know where it's coming from, even though you have an assumption. This process makes space for dismantling to take place. Yes, it does. 100%. You got it. Thank you for putting it in a container that is really easy to grasp. That's exactly the case. If we engage with that voice, we can find out what its positive intention is, and we can ask it to maybe create a new strategy that is more in alignment with the current needs. Because what a child that has no power in the context of a family environment needs is different from what an adult in the world trying to function among other people needs. Very, very different things. And what happens is that behavior, that voice, that messaging that was really effective at a younger age in a very different context has outgrown its usefulness and needs to just be upgraded. It's like upgrading the software, right? So Jenny says, last week when I asked for prayers that morning, I got an Easter Seals advocate and they took me as a client. Jenny, I am getting chills. Ooh, congratulations. That's just so beautiful. Jenny says, I'm asking for your prayers again. I meet with advocate today with my deadline the 16th. So you have our prayers, Jenny. And thank you for sharing the outcome with the prayers that were given. It's the power of prayer is remarkable. And I see it as the power of focused intention. We can call it prayer, we can call it intention, whatever we're calling it, it's powerful. We can, focused intention happens through prayer, through meditation, through directed intention. So Jenny says, I agree with you on that upgrade thinking. Yeah, it's like upgrading the software, for these messages and behaviors that have become automated, and it's just sometimes they need updating, and they're generally very accommodating in that update. So Jenny says, I was absolutely grateful. Well, that's beautiful, Jenny. It's a beautiful cycle, the gift of that intention and those prayers. And I just invite you, Jenny, even in the hardships you've experienced, to recognize this as another confirmation that the universe has your back, even though it doesn't always look like it. Even the hardships that we go through, they're serving us in their way, and we may or may not ever get to see it consciously. We may not ever have awareness of it, but that's my hypothesis anyway, and I see it bearing fruit. So that's it for today. I invite you to have the conversation with that voice in your head. Find out what its intention is, and help it to align. And we too have the intention that this will be approved for you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody. That's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living. And until next time, so much appreciation and so much love to you.